United Way Halifax has unveiled a snapshot of poverty in HRM. A new report based on data from the 2021 Canadian Census and various other sources details the poverty landscape in the municipality since 2018. It looks at how the pandemic, the growing housing crisis, and rising cost of living have all had an impact. LaPierre is Director of Social Impact Strategy with the United Way Halifax. So given what we've seen with this report that you released this morning, can you talk about what poverty looks like in Halifax and the surrounding areas?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you'll see from the report the number of statistics and the amount of people who are living in poverty and how it disproportionately affects people who are marginalized or racialized. But, you know, something that's really important to recognize about poverty is we see lots of visuals every day. People living in encampments and people who need to panhandle to make ends meet and those sorts of things. But there's also an element to poverty that is very hidden. There's people at home behind closed doors making really difficult choices. Choices about rent versus food, heat versus rent, those sorts of things. Choices about can they send their child to a birthday party? Can that child go on an excursion with their classmates if there's a cost involved? And there's elements layered in that are not even about choice, it's about the lack of choice. It's about, I am in an affordable apartment today, but is that going to change? Could I get evicted? If I get evicted, where would I go? I know there's nothing affordable for me. So there's a layer of stress and concern.
The uncertainty.
The uncertainty and the strain of an extreme cost of living in a housing crisis and incomes that aren't coming up is just really rampant.
And who is dealing with this poverty in HRM? Who are we talking about?
Well, certainly with the cost of living the way it is, more and more families are feeling the strain and the stress. But we also know that people who experience poverty, people who are marginalized or racialized, experience poverty disproportionately. So we're going to be looking at people with disabilities, we're going to be looking at Indigenous Nova Scotians, Black Nova Scotians, visible minorities, a whole group of people who just don't have the same opportunities, maybe haven't had the same opportunities to create generational wealth, have lived with racism and prejudice, and it takes away a lot from their lives and takes a lot away from their opportunity.
Well, how are they getting by then? How are folks managing to make the choices that they are?
Well, you know, some are and some aren't getting by. I mean, our streets are filled with people who aren't getting by and can't make ends meet. Others are using resources that are available, things like the food banks and other service providers, and we're seeing a real strain on the service providers in the community. Their funding is mostly stable, but their needs are going up. The demands on their services are going up. So there's more and more strain on the service providers as well. And so everybody's just trying to do what they can. And of course, some communities take care of each other really well. We know that if we're looking at, so for example, the African Nova Scotian community, they're overrepresented by name list, the homelessness list in the community, but we also know they're underreported because they also take care of each other and bring each other into their homes and live with family and friends. So there's a lot of ways people are getting by.
You know, of course, you touched on the rising costs of everything. Your report was based on the 2021 census. Since then, you know, what has changed? What have you seen?
Well, there's a bit of a false positive in the report, and that's because when the data was gathered, CERB was in play. So we certainly, it's a good demonstration of how good policy can affect poverty rates. So during the time that people were receiving CERB, the poverty rates were lower and the food security rates were higher. And so there's a bit of a false positive in the report. So we know that that's not the case anymore, that the poverty rates are rising, that the food insecurity rates are rising. So you know, we know that those trends are going to continue and that people are going to continue to struggle in the coming years.
Well, I know it was just released this morning, but what kind of reaction have you had so far?
Well, you know, certainly we had a very strong turnout, a lot of interested people at the launch release. We've been talking to government officials about it for about a week. And, you know, the reaction right now is, I would say, both a bit stark, realizing some of the severity of the issues of poverty in the community, but also we're hopeful that the call to action and people's interest in the report and initial response to the report will create momentum for change.
What do you think will change?
Well, the report identifies, I think it's 11 indicators, measures of change that United Way is inviting others to focus on in the coming years, and we hope those indicators will change because there are serious points of indication of people's well-being, things like the number of people on the by name list, the homelessness list, people's income rates. Those are the things that we're hoping will change over time if enough of us, the nonprofit sector, all levels of government, business, individuals, associations, etc., can all focus our work on those.
And without that change, what will happen?
More of this. More people struggling, more people living homeless, more people in a housing crisis, more people not being able to feed their families.
All right, well, thank you very much for walking us through it. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.